Happy Monday, guys. I hope your weekend was relaxing. I hope you got lots of rest. We are going to pick up right where we left off from last week. So, we discussed George Bush Sr. or H.W. Bush, and we are going to pick up with the following president, President Bill Clinton. But before we do that, let's take a look at the new now. What is one reason people moved from the Rust Belt to the Sun Belt towards the end of the 20th century? So, we talked about this. During the end of the 20th century, we start to see the military industrial complex. Why in the world do you think people would move to the Rust Belt, from the Rust Belt to the Sun Belt? Places like Texas. What do we have here? What sort of shifts are we seeing in the economy? What's being built here? Number two, why did Iraq invade Kuwait at the beginning of the Persian Gulf? We discussed Saddam during our last lesson, and we in particular talked about some of the reasons why he invaded or decided to invade Kuwait. So there's actually a few of them, and I just really need one. Number three, if you were a billionaire, what would you do with all your money and power? Would you run for president? Um, Interesting question, as we've recently seen this, haven't we? So make sure you get all three of those questions. Today we are going to discuss Bill Clinton's positions and domestic policies. So at the beginning of 1992, we see another presidential cycle. The contenders during this presidential election are Bill Clinton, he's a Democrat; Ross Perot, who's an independent; and George H.W. Bush, who is a Republican. Now, we know from our past lectures that there's only two political parties. Well, there's more than two political parties, but there's two main political parties in the United States, right? We have the Democrats and the Republicans. We briefly touched on the concept of third parties in the United States. If you remember correctly, remember the role of a third party is not necessarily to win elections, but it's to bring issues that these two parties can talk about, right? So, a good example of this might be the Green Party here in the United States. It's a pretty small party, but the idea is that this party wants to make not just politicians, but Americans in general more aware of the environment and the impact that we have on the environment. So their whole goal is to push legislation that will create more eco-friendly policies, right? And so when people vote for Green Party leaders, you're taking away votes from Democrats and Republicans. So what these two try to do in order to win those votes back is they try to discuss issues from third parties, right? So they'll bring up issues about the environment, and they'll try to touch on issues concerning people who are very eco-conscious, right? And so their whole objective is to try to win those votes. So the interesting thing is, during the 1992 election, we see a particular independent. His name is Ross Perot. Ross Perot is a billionaire. I believe he's from Dallas. He doesn't win, but the interesting thing about Perot is that he is one of the most successful independent candidates in U.S. history. So a little bit about him. His net worth was $3.5 billion. I don't even know if I could spend that much money. He's the 101st richest person in the United States. He's a businessman, and like I said, he lived in Dallas, Texas. So go ahead and open up your notes. Mr. Feltz doesn't have his notes open. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. So let's take a look at this. Role of third parties. Look at that first section. It says third parties provided an outlet for minorities to voice grievances and generate new ideas. Many ideas that are that are started in third parties, like Going Green, are later adopted by either Republicans or Democrats. So you can see the influence there, right? Some of these ideas originally developed with third parties, and then later big parties will adopt them. Why are third parties important? For number one. And then number two, Google a third party that agrees with an issue you care about. What is the name and stance on the issue? So that's pretty easy. You could Google American third parties, for example, and you can probably find a list of third parties, and I'm sure you can find something that you would agree with. So make sure you answer those questions. Go ahead and pause the video if you need a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. The second section is over Ross Perot. Remember, he's that independent candidate that we're discussing. Ross Perot received nearly 20% of the popular vote in the presidential election of 1992. Guys, that's massive. That's huge. Um, Independent candidates usually don't receive anywhere near 20%, making him one of the most successful third-party candidates in U.S. history. So what I want you to do is I want you to open up Google Classroom, and I want you to go ahead and watch the videos on Ross Perot. Should be Ross Perot 92 ad. So go ahead and take a moment to watch that, pause this video, and we'll continue once you're finished. All right, let's pick up. So if you go back to your assignment, it says, number 1 says, what is one way Perot tried to appeal to voters in this campaign commercial? What was he saying about himself? Why would he, Ross Perot, be any different than, say, Bill Clinton or any of the contenders during the election of 1992, George H.W. Bush, for example? In what way is he trying to distinguish himself from those two candidates? And why is Ross Perot significant? Again, guys, I've noticed that some of us are missing questions that are really, really easy to answer, and a lot of it comes from the paragraph up above. So please, please, please make sure you're reading that paragraph. Take 15, 20, 30 seconds to read those paragraphs because you can find the answers there. So eventually, let me see where we're at. Eventually, Bill Clinton wins the election. So if you look at the results here, Ross Perot gets almost 20% of the vote. George H.W. Bush gets somewhere in the ballpark of about 36, 37%, and then Bill Clinton gets just under 45%. So Perot actually but he takes away a lot of votes from both candidates. But Bill Clinton ultimately wins. And so here's a picture with Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton. I'm sure you guys are aware that both of them have run for president. And so what I want us to do is I want us to move to that third section here under Bill and Hillary Clinton. It says Bill Clinton was the governor from Arkansas who ran for Democratic candidate for president in 1992. Besides becoming the first lady after Bill Clinton was elected, Hillary Clinton had been a lawyer and a senator of New York. She ran for president against Donald Trump in 2016. I'm sure many of you remember that election. So number 1 says, how did Bill Clinton try to appeal to voters with this campaign video? And why did this appearance by Bill Clinton appeal to young voters? So what I want you to do is I want you to open up Google Classroom, and I want you to watch the Clinton presidential ad of 92 and the Clinton saxophone video, okay? And watch both of them in order to answer both questions. So go ahead and pause this and start. All right, let's pick back up. So we focused on the election. We focused on Bill's path to the presidential office. He's now won the presidency, and he's begun his tenure as president of the United States. Now, if you remember, if we go back and we think about George H.W. Bush's presidency, we know that the economy was suffering a little bit. And so that's one of Bill Clinton's top priorities is to bring the U.S. economy back on track. And we want to see some growth during Bill Clinton's presidency. So one of the probably one of the most important economic periods is during the early 1990s. We start to see the use of computers. And I know today, guys, computers are everywhere and they're super accessible. You can find them at schools. You can find them at libraries. I mean, heck, your phones are mini computers, right? But during the early 90s, late 80s, computers are expensive. And usually only big companies and big universities have computers. And so what ends up happening is we start to see the production of computers that can be used at home. And this really spurs the economy, right? This allows the economy to start healing, to start moving towards growth. And so during actually, this is kind of funny. This is one of Apple's first computers, right? Um, Very basic. There's no plastic. It's all wood covered, right? But the idea is that Clinton, because we saw such little growth and such little employment during Bush Sr.'s presidency, Bill Clinton makes it his priority to grow jobs and grow the economy. And so you can look at this chart from 1993 until about 2001. We see a ton of job growth under Bill Clinton. We also start to see the push of more global trade. We talked about that during Bush's presidency as well. We start to see that picking up, but Bill Clinton really pushes the really pushes exporting electronics and computers, and so he tries to take down some of those barriers so that international trade can be used to help grow the U.S. economy. Um, if we look at federal deficit and surplus, right, during Bill Clinton's presidency, we actually see a deficit, which means that we are spending, the federal government's spending more money than it's earning, right? And so under Bill Clinton, he actually creates a surplus, which means that the U.S. government is actually making more money than it's spending. And so we start to see national debt lower, and we start to see the government deregulating certain industries. We see the U.S. government making more money, and so we start to see national debt lowering as well. However, like most things, all good things must come to some sort of end. Um, and there is a scandal during Bill Clinton's presidency. Um, he is impeached. So we just got finished watching the current president being impeached. His was more political, um, and the argument was in kind of that it was also criminal. Bill Clinton's impeachment kind of rests more on morality. So while he's in office, he has an assistant, an aide, Monica Lewinsky, and so he is accused of having a sexual relationship with her. Basically, during the impeachment, Clinton lies about an affair he had with Monica Lewinsky. Um, Prosecutors want to impeach him. However, when it's taken to the Senate for vote, the vote falls short of the two-thirds that's necessary to remove the president. So Clinton stays in office. And this impeachment, the interesting thing about this impeachment shows that the president's not just he's not just he's not just responsible for the political and economic um, health of the United States, but he's also being watched and judged, and his actions, the way that he carries himself in public is being scrutinized, right? Now his personal life is on display. So that is going to be, if we go down to economic reform, what I want you to do, I want you to watch the video. I think it's the Apple Computer video, and that should help you answer this section. So this first paragraph says Clinton made exporting American high-tech goods easier, an increase in trade, plus the development of computer-related industries helped restore the U.S. economy. A reduction of military spending also helped the economy. By 1999, Clinton had balanced the nation's budget. It was the best economic period in U.S. history. So go ahead and watch that Apple video. Number one says, how did technology impact the economy during Clinton's presidency? And number two, why did the U.S. economy increase under President Clinton? And then the rest of this will be independent work. So, guys, just remember I am available live Monday and Wednesdays from 11:15 until 12:30. We will be going over this lecture. You can also find this on YouTube and Edmodo. Okay, So if you have any questions, come see me Monday and Wednesday. I'm also available on Fridays from 11:15 until 12:30. So you can always join the Google Meets, pop in, ask me a couple questions if you need help, and I will make myself available. So guys, have a fantastic day. Please continue to work hard. I appreciate your work ethic, and I know that you guys are pouring 100% into this. So enjoy your Monday, and I will talk to you guys later.